Hello and welcome to the Beyond Biotech podcast number 81. I'm Jim Cornell and this is the weekly podcast from the Biotech. This week we're looking at, among other things, a treatment for severe knee osteoarthritis from the Belgian headquartered company BioSenic. One of BioSenic's products, JTA004, is an intra-articular viscosupplement treatment for knee osteoarthritis. And to tell us more about that and the other conditions and treatments the company is working on is BioSenic Chief Scientific Officer and Chief Operating Officer, Carole Nicco. The first and hopefully easiest question is if you could tell me a little bit about the company.
Yes, so BioSenic is a reverse merger. It's coming from the reverse merger of two companies. A small company in France named MedSenic. MedSenic was born, I would say, in 2007, I think. I wasn't there at this moment. It's mainly the CEO, François Riegère, the deputy CEO, Véronique Pommy. They create this MedSenic company because they had a really interesting technology, arsenic trioxide, to treat autoimmune diseases. And in 2022, MedSenic reverse merged with Bone Therapeutics, a listed company from Belgium. Bone Therapeutics was owning cell therapy, ALLOB, to treat difficult fractures, and another technology, JTA, to treat osteoarthritis. The first problem Bone Therapeutics had is that clinical trial phase 3 with JTA was a failure. And even though this product is really interesting, it was a failure. And then Bone Therapeutics started to problems to continue with its other technology, ALLOB. Anyway, another clinical trial was going on, clinical phase 2 clinical trial on difficult fractures, tibial difficult fractures. And the reverse merger occurred in October 2022. And so BioSenic inherited an ALLOB clinical trial phase 2 still going on, but not finished. A JTA technology to treat osteoarthritis. And we have also this arsenic trioxide to treat autoimmune diseases. Here now mainly chronic graft-versus-host disease. And for this technology, we are preparing a clinical trial phase 3.
I know you have different treatments that we're going to go into. I wonder if first we could talk about the knee osteoarthritis and what it is and what the current treatments are and why there's been a need for new treatments.
Osteoarthritis is a really huge pathology. Around 60 million people worldwide have this disease. It's a disease that can be stratified in different types of osteoarthritis. And this has been evidenced from time to time. And in 2022, an article really evidenced that there are clusters of osteoarthritis. It can be a mechanical etiology of the pathology with age and with the way of living you have, what your knee is submitted to, body weight or sport or whatever. But an immune cluster has also been evidenced. Today, there is no real treatment to treat osteoarthritis. There are some drug products to avoid pain relief, but there is no real treatment. Today, the most known and renowned treatment is Synvis-1. It's hyaluronic acid treatment based on hyaluronic acid, and it's mainly something mechanical, like a cushion that is injected into the knee to avoid the pain. But there is no real treatment. JTA was the treatment that BioSenic evaluated in a clinical trial phase 3. And when this clinical trial was implemented, the clusters of the different type of patients was not really known and evidenced. So the clinical trial and JTA was applied to people from all the clusters. It means that there was an heterogeneity of the patients, and it could be an explanation of the failure. The treatment we have with JTA is more specific with patients with immune form of osteoarthritis. So today we have a treatment that failed in a clinical trial phase 3, but I think should be used in just a part of the patients, and this is the most severe and inflammatory part of the patients. So this needs to have another clinical trial, of course, but with the result we have today, because we did a post hoc analysis of what we obtained during the previous clinical trial phase 3, we see that this compound could be a real treatment for severe osteoarthritis patients. And why? It's because in this drug, we have a compound that is named clonidine. And clonidine is an anesthetic. That's the first mechanism of action of this drug. But recently, it was evidenced that it has also anti-inflammatory actions, and also that clonidine acts specifically on chondrocytes that are implicated in the pathology of osteoarthritis, and it acts on special voltage-dependent pores that help to relieve the pain. So here we have a drug that has multiple mechanisms of action that are really interesting in osteoarthritis, severe inflammatory osteoarthritis.
Could you tell me a little bit about the ALLOB program?
So ALLOB is cell therapy. ALLOB means allogenic bone. This treatment comes from the use of stem cells that are cultured specifically to be oriented as chondrocytes, and this cell therapy was designed to be used as bone repair therapy. The aim is to repair the bone with injecting these cells where production of bone producing cells could proliferate to repair the bone. Bone Therapeutics initially used this therapy in clinical trial phase 2 for spinal fusion and also for bone repairing, and the 2 first trials were success. So after those 2 interesting success, they decided to use it in a clinical trial phase 2 for tibial fracture repairing, difficult tibial fracture repair. And the clinical trial started in 2019 with this really interesting therapy. It's a cell therapy, but as you know, cell therapy can be difficult to manage because you have to have the production and the injection really rapidly because you cannot preserve the cells usually. With ALLOB, what is interesting is that it's cryopreserved. Bone Therapeutics and BioSenic have this technology of cell repairing that you can have in stock and preserve for nearly 40 months. And we know the stability of this product, this cell therapy, for between 36 and 40 months, cryopreserved. So that's really interesting. So the clinical trial phase 2 started for difficult tibial fracture, and few problems occurred at the same time. It started in 2019 when COVID started. And so tibial fracture at this period decreased. because no one was doing ski or motorcycle or whatever. So it was the first problem. The cell therapy was ready at this period, but you can cryopreserve for 36 to 40 months and not more. So you have to have the recruitment really fast. And it's one of the problems that happened, and that's one of the problem why we had a failure. The other problem is that you have to find the best way, the best volume, the best way to inject your product. And it was decided to inject this product just directly after the fracture. And we found out post-hoc that maybe it was not the best protocol. Because when you inject just directly after the fracture, you have a period where the cells are not in the best condition to proliferate. It would have been better to inject maybe the cells later, as in the previous other clinical trial using ALLOB, and it has not been designed this way. So this failure of ALLOB is really maybe also due to bad circumstances. And what I would like to say is that ALLOB is a great product, could have great results. Here again, other clinical trial with another design and other circumstances would be great for this technology, cryopreserved, and could be really helpful for patients with difficult fractures.
What's the JTA004 and how does that work?
JTA004 is a mix of hyaluronic acid, clonidine, and plasmatic proteins. With this product, we have the combination of really interesting mechanic and biologic parameters that can act in the same way to treat severe inflammatory osteoarthritis. The hyaluronic acid is a viscose supplement. It's like Synvisquan, the known Synvisquan. The action of hyaluronic acid is mainly mechanical because it's, I would say, like a cushion. It's a soft product that can help to avoid the friction in the knee. Also, and it's quite recent, hyaluronic acid can also act on some cells, immune cells, that have CD44 receptors on their membrane. But it's not well known today, but hyaluronic acid could have this action on immune cells to help avoid inflammation in the knee. Here, what we have on the top of hyaluronic acid is clonidine. And I think that clonidine is a really interesting element of the product because clonidine is well known for its anesthetic effect because it acts on alpha-2 adrenoreceptors on cells, and that's well known. And that's how it acts as an anesthetic. Clonidine also acts as an anti-inflammatory compound. That's the second mechanism of action of clonidine that is really interesting in osteoarthritis. And this is a little bit less known that it's anesthetic effect, but it's also really recognized. Clonidine can act on lymphocytes apoptosis and so reduce pro-inflammatory reactions in the knee. The third mechanism of clonidine is that it can act directly on some precise receptors that will act on voltage sodium channels and avoid pain. So with this triple mechanism of action of clonidine, we really have a compound that is designed for osteoarthritis because these are the phenomena that occur, pain, inflammation, in the cluster of severe and inflammatory osteoarthritis patients. We also have plasmatic proteins, and these proteins mainly act mechanically to make a soft viscose supplement to avoid the mechanical stress on the knee.
I know you're going to be giving a presentation at the OARSI World Conference in the spring, so I obviously can't ask you to give away anything that you're going to be saying there, but can you tell me what the attendance at the meeting means and what you'll be presenting there?
We're going to present the results of the post hoc analysis. As I mentioned, there was a clinical trial phase 3 that was realized and considered as a failure. But when you have negative results, and as a really pure scientist, I know that results that can seem to be negative are the most interesting, in fact, because with these results, you have something to analyze and to understand why and how it works. So with the results of the clinical trial phase 3 of JTA, we analyzed why we had these results, were the results the same on all the patients, and knowing that there were some clusters of patients, we reanalyzed the results, separating the different type of patients. We focused on the severe inflammatory patients with high CRP, which is a marker of inflammation in the blood. We focused on these patients. And this post-hoc analysis that was done with an external company evidenced that for these patients, the treatment, JTA treatment, was a real benefit in terms of stiffness, pain, and the biomarkers were better for these patients after the treatment. So that's what we're going to present at this Congress. And at the same time, we patented this application of JTA on this cluster of patients.
Is that event something where people just present results, or is it one where you can sometimes see launches of new products and new treatments?
No, it's mainly presentation of results, but it's true that this kind of events, that's where you can meet people. It can be medical doctors, but biopharma also, and you can have really interesting interactions to evaluate or present your product for the next steps. Because here we're talking about a technology that we don't want to continue the development. JTA it's the final product, and this product is really could be used just as it is. It doesn't need more development. It needs a company to license it and to do another clinical trial phase 3, because it's really a very interesting and good compound by itself. BioSenic won't do more development on this compound, but we'll be really happy to have partnered to be able to go further in clinical trial, to redesign a clinical trial phase 3 with the good right patients. I'm so sure that it's really a compound that could treat this kind of osteoarthritis, and so many patients nowadays need this kind of treatments. You only have treatments that avoid pain for a few months for now, and no treatment at all. And it's really a difficult disease that 60 million people worldwide. So even if we have a third of this patient that could be treated by JTA, can you imagine all those people suffering from this disease? It's enormous. And this drug product is ready. And that's the difficulty of biopharma nowadays, because we can have really great compounds, but to bring it to the patients, you have to have successful clinical trial. When you do a trial, it's a trial. You don't know before the best way to evaluate. And if there is a failure, because a small parameter, you have to start from the beginning of the clinical trial. And it's million and million of euros to start again, even if you are very close to evidence that the compound is really good. like JTA, we have really interesting results on this cluster on a clinical trial phase 3 with almost 800 patients. So it's enormous. But today, if we want to go to the patients, we have to start again the trial. We're not ready to develop more on this because it's ready and it needs partners.
All right. Is it just a one-off treatment? You only have to give it once?
For now, yeah, we plan to do it once and evaluate on one injection, but we don't know now. We don't have enough background to evaluate what we would have to do after 1, 2, or more years. Patient might need more than one injection, but it's a treatment, and not only as what we have on the market now, like Synvis One, the drug, the treatment, I mean, the compound that we have today on the market are really not drug treatment.
Sure. You mentioned how difficult it is. Are there other companies working on treatments for this condition?
Yes, of course, there are other clinical trials going on and other treatment with pain relief drugs. What I would like to introduce here, it's another compound that we're working with in BioSenic. It's arsenic trioxide, because here we're talking about clonidine that acts on some part of the lymphocytes, immune and relief mechanism of action. Arsenic trioxide is another drug product that BioSenic owns, and it's a really powerful compound to modulate immunity and autoimmunity. And why I'm talking now about this molecule is because we plan to use it in one day viscosupplement. For now, we're closer to have oral form of treatment with arsenic trioxide, but one day we plan to have viscosupplements. And I think the treatment of immune diseases, autoimmune immune diseases, such as this cluster of osteoarthritis and other immune diseases, need new innovative compound. Arsenic trioxide is a really interesting, powerful drug that could be really revolutionary, in my opinion, to treat such kind of diseases. I know arsenic trioxide because I studied it in my previous position as a scientist in academic lab. I was evaluating at a preclinical level different type of compound molecules, and arsenic trioxide is the one that I found is the most interesting and is the one why I decided to move from academic to private to bring this molecule further than preclinical evaluation. I think that this compound, arsenic trioxide, is a compound that could be incredibly useful for patients with really difficult diseases, autoimmune immune diseases, and we should be able to bring it to patients for osteoarthritis, for systemic sclerosis, for chronic graft versus host disease. And so I think that some molecule needs to really be bring to the patients because they're really interesting and unknown today.
Where are you at with the work on that in terms of clinical trials?
So arsenic trioxide, it's a molecule that is known for 3,000 years to treat diseases, but just at the end of the 19th century, it was rediscovered as a treatment of blood cancer. And arsenic trioxide is used since 2000 to treat a certain form of blood cancer. We, BioSenic, use this molecule that is already used in patients to treat cancer. We use it we would like to use it in patients with autoimmune diseases. And here we already did a clinical trial phase 2 to treat chronic graft versus host disease. This clinical trial phase 2 was a success. We finished the trial in 2021. We published the results in 2022. And now we're preparing a phase 3 clinical trial with an oral route to treat patients. Previously, it was an IV route. So now we developed an oral route to treat chronic graft versus host disease. This disease occurs when patients graft for blood cancer, develop an autoimmune disease. The graft reacts against the patients, and the chronic graft versus host disease occur. So we're going to start this clinical trial phase 3 this year, and then we would like to use this treatment also to treat 2 other pathology, because we also have preclinical results and clinical phase 2 results on lupus and systemic sclerosis. So this treatment, oral arsenic trioxide treatment, is really an innovative treatment for the future of autoimmune diseases.
Will it apply equally to lots of different autoimmune diseases, do you think?
Yes, I think that today it's chronic graft versus host disease, but the next step, I would say, is systemic sclerosis. I evaluated the effect of arsenic trioxide, but combined with another molecule, copper, and I evidenced in preclinical models, in vitro and in vivo, that the combination of arsenic trioxide and copper allows to decrease the dosage of arsenic trioxide and to treat systemic sclerosis in a mice preclinical model. So we are going to develop this new combination, which is patented exclusively by BioSenic. We're developing the oral form of arsenic trioxide combined with copper to treat first systemic sclerosis, and then we would like to apply this treatment also to lupus. It's different from the treatment that we hear about nowadays. You hear about immune treatment, antibodies treatment, all the many treatments that we hear about nowadays are really specific treatments acting on one pathway. They will act on CD20, on this and this pathway on the immune cells. And it's really these treatments that are under clinical trial phase 2 or 3 nowadays are really specific of one pathway, one mechanism that is dysregulated during the disease. With arsenic trioxide, what is interesting is that it acts on different pathways. Apoptosis, it acts on the mitochondria, it can act on epigenetics also, and it acts only on the cells when they are overactivated. So it means that when you treat with arsenic trioxide, if there is no need to act in the cells on some pathways, arsenic won't have any action and will be eliminated. But if there is a pathway where arsenic trioxide can act, or if it can be fixed on a protein or on somewhere in the cell, it will act. And this is really interesting because it's not specific. It will act only if there is an overactivated mechanism. The other thing is that arsenic trioxide not only acts on immune cells, but also on other types of cells like fibroblasts, synovioblasts that are overactivated and are also cells that are implicated in the mechanism of fibrosis of a lot of autoimmune diseases.
What are the next steps?
I'm now the CEO and CSO of BioSenic. So I think that we need to have short, medium, and long-term strategies. So the clinical trial phase 3 is the nowadays strategy. We have to start with this clinical trial phase 3. So that's for arsenic trioxide, clinical trial phase 3. At the same time, I think that the use of arsenic trioxide in systemic sclerosis should be a medium aim of BioSenic, and we should be able to have the treatment in about 3 years and be able to start a clinical trial phase 2 in 3 years and a half on systemic sclerosis. At the same time, we have JTA and ALLOB that are ready. And if we find partners, we are ready to start from now with these two technologies to treat patients as soon as possible. The only thing on these two technologies, but the big problem also is to find partners. But those two technologies are ready to be used. Mainly JTA is really ready to be used for patients.
Quite a diverse pipeline there at BioSenic. Don't forget to check out the latest news and articles at Labiotech.eu, and I hope wherever in the world you are, you have a great week ahead. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll join us again next time for another Beyond Biotech.